Florida has trailed a total of 16 minutes all season long, but of the one-loss teams, they're behind Texas, looking out at the national championship game. Hey, how are you folks? Jason Horowitz, glad to be with you on the SEC GEICO Game of the Week preview. South Carolina 24th, heading to number 3, Florida. But let's talk about the BCS for a second. Let's take a look at the BCS standings. You see it right there. Alabama, Texas Tech undefeated. They're 1-2. But Florida will get its shot at Alabama. The question is, can the Gators remain undefeated till that point? Can the Crimson Tide remain undefeated till that point? Let's bring in Spencer Tillman to break it all down. And Spence, when we talk about Florida, they're number 4 in the BCS, behind Texas among the one-loss teams. But do you think that maybe they're the best team in the nation overall? Forget about one loss and no loss?
I think in terms of being complete and what we're used to seeing in conventional offenses and defenses, I think that they are. Again, although they're spreading them out, they're doing some things that are a little bit atypical from what you're seeing the other spread teams do. But in terms of since the third quarter of the Arkansas game, nobody has played more efficiently on offense and defense for that matter than has Florida. So they've got a legitimate argument, but Texas Tech has certainly got a strong argument, at least from the offensive standpoint, that they're as prolific as Florida is, to be sure, Jason. I don't disagree with that, though.
And it's something that a lot of people around the nation are saying, that you're going to get a Florida-Texas Tech national championship game. Yeah, obviously, we have to wait and see, because that would be a phenomenal game. But, Spence, when you talk about that Arkansas game and how this Florida offense has evolved at this point, what has been the key to the change for this team in the last 4 or 5 games?
Well, for Florida in particular, it's been basically a focus on detail. Again, if you go back and look at the Ole Miss contest, when they lost that one, from that point forward, and again, more specifically, the third quarter of the Arkansas game, what they've done is they've opened up their entire package. And again, I remember, I have to go back to the look on Urban Meyer's face when he came to midfield with Houston Nutt and shook his hand. It was oh so brief, and there was a little bit of contention on his face as well. They knew they missed an opportunity at that particular point in time. So the focus has been laser-like ever since that point in time. They've been scoring off the charts. They've been winning the turnover margins by significant amounts. They only had 6 turnovers all year long, and a very microscopic portion of those came since that third quarter of the Arkansas game. So again, that was the benchmark that you look to see. If you had to say, look, there was a particular time when this Florida team took off, that was it. And they've been focused ever since, Jason. And
Spence, this week, Steve Spurrier has said that this Florida team is better than the Florida team that won the national championship 2 years ago. So having said that, and Steve Spurrier knowing Florida, what does his South Carolina team have to do?
Well, they've got to get pressure on the quarterback. That's always key. And if you remember, Tebow did some things last week that we hadn't seen him do. Remember, Dan Mullen, his offensive coordinator, was trying to keep him between 10 and 11 carries per game. He carried it more. He scored more. He actually led the team in rushing. So now we're starting to see them go back to the old playbook. So South Carolina's defense has got to be strong. They got to secure, stop the run, not necessarily from the running backs, because remember, they were stressing defenses on the perimeter. Tim Tebow is going to do it in between the tackle guard gaps, reading like he did a couple of weeks ago in what is basically a veer type scheme. So that's what they've got to be concerned about, the South Carolina on the defensive side of the ball.
And Spencer, in this game last year, Tim Tebow had a career-high 5 rushing touchdowns, accumulated 424 total yards of offense. But it's the other quarterbacks in this game that are very interesting, Spence, and something that you've pointed out about Steve Spurrier. He doesn't really know who his quarterback is, and it's not that he's changing quarterbacks between series. Last week against Arkansas, it was every other play. Can that work?
That's right. Smelly or Garcia, it doesn't really matter at this point in terms of Steve Spurrier's approach to the game. He's going to get the quarterback in there that's going to have the best success. But they say off the record that it doesn't bother them, but you look at their execution, it's been problematic. They overthrew a couple of players on more than one occasion. I was looking at the tape last night, Jason, and unless they get that corrected, what that's going to produce is more offensive opportunities for Florida. And if that happens, that means that any chance you had of beating this Florida team goes out the window instantly. So Steve Spurrier's rolling the dice a little bit, but that is his way. He's always done that. But I'm not so sure it's going to pay off against this bunch. They're playing about as good as anybody in the country defensively.
That's true. Florida is doing that. South Carolina, though, has played very well of late, gotten back into the AP ranking, 7-3, maybe on pace for a New Year's Day bowl game. But in this game, do they have a chance?
No, they don't have a chance. The only thing they can do, again, is get efficient play from their quarterbacks to have a chance to even make it close and compete. If this Florida team reverts back to the form they had before the second half of last week of Vandy, when the 2s and 3s were in the game, nobody in the country short of Texas Tech right now at this point can compete with Florida. So this is going to be a one-sided affair. The Steve Spurrier, all that stuff, it's old news. This is about a team that's got a bigger mission on board, created what it essentially is, a play-in game for the national championship.
Old news, Steve Spurrier's 4th game against against his former school, and his first game was the only one that they've won in the last 16 tries against Florida. Spencer Tillman, thank you very much. We'll see you Saturday on the College Football Today.
All right, Jason, we'll see you, buddy.
And, of course, that game on CBS, and, of course, the games that you see on CBS, you can see on CBSSports.com. It's SEC Live, South Carolina at Florida. Steve Spurrier going back to the Swamp. It's a 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff on CBS and CBSSports.com. For Spencer Tillman, I'm Jason Horowitz. Take care, folks.